under in the poor zone. Commercial taxable values, 1,358 units. 0 to 25,331, 24.37%, and the rest of them go up and down on here. The third one is the most important one, which is commercial and residential units, 13,064 units total, 100,000 or less.
Thank you, Mr.
10,702.
Thank you, Mr. Tim.
I know you people are going to, this is going to take me forever, and I'm doing all the work, and you're just blowing me off.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
this
Tim.
is not the way to run a city.
Loretta Sharp, followed by Mark Perla.
Loretta Sharp, 1311 South Palm Way. I'm losing my mind. We elected you people and we said, tell us what is the most important things in this city that we can make the city better. We brought in the residential appraiser for Palm Beach County, and he said one of the things you can do is you can fix your infrastructure. We base the property values on your infrastructure, on people who are paying from landlords and blight. Well, you went out and you got master plans that I think everybody on this commission voted for. And it said, this is what it's going to cost to fix the infrastructure. Now, I don't like paying more taxes. Nobody likes paying more taxes. But we're at a critical point. Every single time that our tax values go up, we have a commission who wants to do something else with the money. They don't want to fix the streets, they don't want to fix the sewers, they don't want to do the sidewalks, even around schools they don't want to do the sidewalks. We hired you to do a job, and I think you're doing the best job that you can do, and I trust you. And the one thing I do want to hear every single one of you say is if we get any grants for any of these type of things, they're going to pay down the bond issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Perla, followed by Barbara Jean Weber.
Mark Perella, 304 2nd Avenue South. I'm here to ask that you all vote unanimously to have the bond referendum to go on the August 2014 ballot. This will send the message to the community that our voice does matter, as you consistently have done in the past. I believe this should be decided by the voice of the people who live, work, and play in our wonderfully unique city. We are not here to whine about whom the repayment burden will fall upon, whether we believe it is necessary or not, spew nasty unfounded rumors of who's lining whose pockets. The time for that is at the ballot in August of 2014 with a nice, quiet vote. Thank you for being so forward-thinking to have done your homework and present a solution that's not the most politically attractive, but it is the one that benefits the most for the city that you chose to govern and accept that position. You did not brush it under the rug as many administrations in the past have. I remember a commission when I first moved into this city that told me there was no money to pave any of the unpaved avenues in the Genesis neighborhood, which simply was not true. Somehow you guys found $50,000 in CDBG funds at ergo 10th Avenue will be paved this summer. Since 2006, there was a $750,000 in community development block grants. I mean, it was just last year that a wooden drain was pulled from under one of our roads. In closing, I would like to once again ask that we see this go to a vote of the people of Lake Worth, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Jean Weber, followed by Michael Chase Black.
Good evening. Each of you has some very interesting ideas, whether everyone agrees with them or not. There's truth in what each of you are saying. I did, however, have a couple of questions, and let me add, there's truth in what the residents are saying as well. In some way, although we're separated a little bit by a wall, our hearts are all in the same place. We all want what is best for the city. I had a couple of questions. Is there any way that this project can be broken into pieces? I think Commissioner Sturdy brought up an interesting point, although it was subtle. Immediate fixing of some things. Can the Park of Commerce be isolated from the whole issue? That way it would be easy for assessment of that aspect of it. Can the bond be broken up into pieces? Just roads, just sidewalks, what have you? Is it possible that you have checked with other things other than this particular bond? And if you have, I'd like to know what they are. Are there any federal funds available? Can we find that out first instead of just taking this amount? So I ask that these things be given thought, because there is perhaps misunderstanding or discontent on the role of the public, although I think it is certainly appropriate that somewhere, sometime, somebody does something. Perhaps a little bit more time is required, and I ask that you do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Chase Black, is that correct? I'm sorry.
Commissioner McVoy's point tonight is on target. Maybe you'll ask me to leave your town when I tell you that I was going to San Francisco State University when the earthquake struck in '89, and went through Hurricane Andrew when I moved back here, and the town I was up in, Indiana, was destroyed. There was only 4% of the people who even thought they needed coverage for that type of thing. So I've seen people left without, and his point to me sounds like, well, if we're gonna need a lifeboat, why are we shooting for an inner tube to stay afloat? So maybe the question needs to be there, but I'm actually want to speak on behalf of the property owners, the investment owners that are in this town that are stellar. They're not slumlords. Friends of mine are Dr. James and Martha Busby. They own 10 properties. They've been coming for the last 5 years during the winter, buying them. They're an example of what a good landlord is. But they're going to actually probably be in a position where they can't be such a favorable landlord, or they'll have to sell their property because of the thin margin they operate by being such good landlords. So if we thought we had an issue in the town with slumlords, I mean, what are we going to do without the good landlords, the people who actually put money into their properties and care about them, and they care about the community? And, I mean, it's just something that I'd like us all to consider in that. You know, if this drives the profit and loss on rental properties even higher or thinner margin, I think unfortunately there's going to be landlords that are going to take a lower road.
Thank you. Terry Brockovich, followed by Scott Eller.
I'll be there in a minute.
Okay.
Terry Brockovich, Harbor Drive, Lake Worth. I'm totally in favor of the 2020 plan. There are many questions that I do have remaining, and the referendum, like Mark is saying, I think should go to vote. However, there are things in this referendum that in the resolution that should be changed tonight before you walk out of here and vote. Because in the first page of the resolution, you talk about certain capital improvements. Then you talk about construction of improvements, then you say construction and improvement, and then in the actual referendum or the actual ballot, you just say acquire and improve, and you don't even talk about reconstruction. So the wording is, I should say, lacking. I'm kind of a stickler for reading and numbers. $63 million. I'm sure your staff, as Mike has done the job to come up with that number of 63.5. If you could do it for 59.5, you should be able to do that. So I hope we can pay that bond off within 30 years. Bringing people into Lake Worth, that's what it's all about. Not that I can afford it or I can't afford it, I'm on a fixed income. Some people say, well, you live in College Park, you can afford it. Well, how do they know what I can afford or can't afford? But I really agree with this bond. We've got to get out of the 60s, we've got to get out of the 70s, we've got to look forward. I lived in Alaska under earthquakes, and let me tell you something, when you're up there talking about earthquakes on the coast, there's no prediction. I can't live with predictions in the future. I live my life to the fullest. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Eller, followed by Richard Stowe.
Hi, Scott Eller at 322 Cornell. I travel all the time, so I'm very seldom here, but I hear things here and there, and of the listing of all the roads, I saw there was only 1.5 in College Park. And I don't know if that's correct, but I mean, my road is fine. My curbs and sidewalks are shot, and I would like to get that corrected. But I would most likely be in favor of this, but at the same time, I think it should be a little bit delayed because, for example, Commissioner McVoy's point, and then also, I just don't know if there's enough information that has been. You mentioned yourself, you're in between two cities. They get a lot of federal aid, and you get none. Can you look deeper into that? I mean, again, I know very little because, again, I travel a great deal, but that's what I'm seeing right now, and I think it should just be delayed.
Thank you. Richard Stowe, we answer all the questions at the very end, folks, so don't think I'm not answering you. Richard Stowe, followed by Wes Blackman.
Good evening. I want to encourage the commission to vote against this resolution, or this measure tonight. I'm former chair of the City of Santa Barbara Transportation Committee. When I lived in Santa Barbara, I served on the Transportation Committee. And we paid for our road improvements through a utility tax. So I think that's something that should be looked into. With regard to, I appreciated Commissioner Zerdy's comment about getting the vote out on this. I consider holding the election in August to be the most inopportune time. I just was out of town and I missed the 4 town hall meetings, so I haven't actually heard the most recent presentation. But I think you would get a far better turnout if you want to put this on the ballot, I think you get a far better turnout in November. That would also give you a month or so to look at some of the issues that Commissioner McVoy raised, if there are in fact some ways to address these investments that we plan to make, that they just don't get washed up. So I would say haste makes waste. I would slow down and consider, if you want to move forward, putting this to the voters. June 7th.
Thank you. Wes Blackman, followed by Herman Robinson. And then Steve Alman.
Good evening, Commissioners. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. There's an inequity regionally in the value of property between municipalities in Palm Beach County. And there's a problem on I-2332, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, about 2,000 square feet, that if it were placed a half mile north of where my house is in Lake Worth, it'd be worth $150,000 more. And we have to look long and hard at why that is. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And this is doing something different. I'm one of the lucky people that are going to have to pay for this. And I've done the math, and it comes down to $338 a year. And I'm willing to risk that to improve the city as a whole and raise us to a point where we are equal or better footing than other municipalities. Thanks.
Well, by Steve Elman.
You get to read it.
Okay.
If all this talk about not now, if not now, when, you know, if the ocean is rising, at 1 inch, are we gonna wait for it to rise 2 inches? You know, we're asking for a basic need of roads, sewers, water. We'll be trying to catch up to the rest of the cities around us if we don't do this now. We need to keep the momentum going. We have significant things happening in Lake Worth that is being recognized from outside, and we need to keep that as an investment for the future. And I would think that people can understand the cost of money. The cost of construction is one thing. Yes, we're going to pay more when you have a mortgage. The cost of the house is not what you pay at the end of the mortgage. So, you know, some of these arguments are basic. We need to count on the voters of Lake Worth to be salesmen. John's a great salesman. I'm hoping Peter Tim will be a great salesman for Lake Worth. The voters of Lake Worth need to sell Lake Worth to people who are going to invest in Lake Worth. If we don't, we're going to leave the perception that we, the people of Lake Worth, don't want to invest in our future. It's going to be an embarrassment for people who aren't willing to step up and pay for basic needs. We need to borrow the money. We need to do it now. Thank you.
Steve Elman filled out a card, asked me to read it. What is Lake Worth 2020 designed to withstand? Current climate conditions and sea level, or likely future climate conditions and sea level? Okay, thank you. Greg Rice?
Greg Rice, Lucerne. Once again, we're sitting here discussing something that's extremely critical to the future of this city. All of us have an opinion, and all of our opinions, I'm sure, are valid and just. I want to address, I read in addressing a question that was brought up about why can't we move this to November or whatever. I read in the paper the other day that the supervisor of election doesn't want referendums on the November ballot because it lengthens the ballot and ballots get pushed down and also. So I don't think that is a possibility. That could be done in the future. Of course it can't be. We have our own electric utility, and we have a 10% utility tax on top of that. For the last decade and a half, 2 decades, we paid some of the highest electric rates in the state, probably. And yet people still came to Lake Worth, not in the numbers that they have in surrounding communities. We've all seen that. But that, coupled with the fact that we have a crumbling infrastructure that, even with the millions and millions of dollars that we've been able to generate, there's been other priorities that have been set that have kept us from reinvesting in our own city. We have got to do something about the crumbling roads. I mean, it's embarrassing to think that right down on Elm Street, across from the cottage, right in the middle of downtown almost, there's a pothole out there that you could lose a small Fiat in. And that's right in the middle of downtown. When we have our street painting festival, and we have to detour the traffic from the main downtown corridors, and we're running people up 2nd Avenue South or whatever, with potholes, once again, that I fell in, if I fell into, I couldn't see over. And how long are we gonna do this? I mean, as was mentioned many times, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. We have got that. Does anybody wanna pay more taxes? Especially not me, I'm a Republican, we don't, that's the bad, I mean, that's worse than using the F word. But it's gonna cost somebody.
Thank you.
If we don't have the money, so we've got to get it somewhere.
Thank you.
Please pass this.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure we all have a lot to say on it. Let's take a very quick break and we'll come back and reconvene, 'cause